The courthouse buzzed with its usual orchestrated chaos. Judges in black robes swept past like shadows. Attorneys juggled files, and anxious families huddled outside courtrooms. The smell of coffee mingled with old paper, and the air thrummed with a constant hum of conversation. Into this fray walked Naomi Blake, dressed in a crisp, charcoal-gray power suit. Her heels echoed sharply on the marble floor, her leather briefcase swaying by her side. She adjusted the gold watch on her wrist, a subtle symbol of poise and precision. But even before she reached the front desk, she felt it, the stare, the kind that crawled across skin and judged before a word was spoken. The court clerk behind the desk, an older woman named Madeline Kruger, peered over her glasses with a mix of suspicion and disbelief. "Good morning," Naomi offered with a polite smile. Madeline cut her off, her hand drifting toward the intercom. "Ma'am, this area isn't open to the public." Naomi blinked. "Public? I'm not the public. I'm Naomi Blake. Today is my first day." She offered her ID, but Madeline barely glanced at it. Her fingers tapped the intercom as she waved over a security officer. "We have a situation," she called out. The officer, a tall man named Officer Burns, approached, his gaze sweeping over Naomi, her dark skin, her confident stance, her professional attire. Still, his hand hovered near his radio. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step back." "Step back?" "From my own office," Naomi said, disbelief coloring her voice. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing," Madeline muttered. "But you can't just waltz in here and pretend." "Pretend what?" "That I belong here." Naomi's voice sharpened. Burns stepped closer. "Lower your voice." "I won't. I have every right to be here." The growing crowd of onlookers whispered. A younger clerk, timid and nervous, tapped at his computer. His name tag read Marcus Ellis. Miss Kruger. I think she might be—" "Quiet, Marcus," Madeline snapped. Naomi set her briefcase on the counter with a loud thunk. "You call security on me, and the only thing you'll be doing is writing an apology letter. Or better yet, let's walk to the DA's office right now. Let's see who's mistaken." Silence fell. Marcus hesitated, typed something quickly, then looked up. She's the new city prosecutor." Madeline went pale. Officer Burns straightened, suddenly awkward. Naomi arched an eyebrow. "Say it." "She's the new city prosecutor," Marcus repeated. Madeline stumbled back from the desk, and Burns shifted uncomfortably. Naomi lifted her briefcase. "If we're done interrogating the black woman in a courthouse, I'd like to go to my office now." She strode forward. No one dared stop her. The hush that followed wasn't just embarrassment. It was recognition. Naomi Blake had arrived. Inside her modest office, Naomi took a deep breath. The nameplate on her desk glinted in the morning light. City Prosecutor, Naomi Blake. She ran a finger over the engraving. A knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she said. District Attorney Richard Caldwell entered. A tall man in his 50s with silver hair and calculating eyes. "Well," he said, "that was quite an entrance." Naomi crossed her arms. "Not the welcome I expected. I heard what happened." "Did you?" "Hearing it doesn't do it justice," she snapped. "I was nearly arrested because someone decided I didn't look the part." Caldwell sighed. "You're right. It was unacceptable. Kruger has been suspended for 2 weeks." 2 weeks? A paid vacation? Naomi laughed bitterly. "It's unpaid. Still not enough." "What do you want, Naomi?" he asked. "Real change. Mandatory anti-bias training. For everyone. Clerks, bailiffs, judges. Policy changes. Protections." He nodded slowly. "You have my support." "Good. Because I'm not going anywhere." Later, her office phone rang. "This is Naomi Blake." "Miss Blake? This is Marcus Ellis. I wanted to apologize. I should have spoken up sooner." "Why didn't you?" "Fear. Kruger's been here forever. People like her run this place. You have a choice, Marcus. Stay silent or speak up next time." "I understand." Naomi hung up. The real work had just begun. The next morning, Naomi felt the shift. Whispers still followed her, but they carried a new weight, awareness. At the clerk's desk, Kruger was gone. Marcus stood in her place. "Good morning, Miss Blake," he greeted, a little sheepish. "Good morning, Mr. Ellis. Covering today?" "Yes, and people are talking. Some are embarrassed. Some say you overreacted. Because it was my job to prove I belonged?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. At a senior staff meeting, Naomi sat across from Caldwell. Attorneys and staff filled the room. "Before we begin," Caldwell said, "Miss Blake has something to say." Naomi stood. "Most of you heard about what happened my first day. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was bias." Peter Vaughn, a senior prosecutor, scoffed. "We deal in facts, not feelings. This training is excessive." "Excessive? Ever been stopped in your own workplace and asked to prove you belong?" Naomi asked. "That's not." "Exactly. That's why we need this. And this is not optional." Caldwell nodded. "Anyone with a problem can take it up with me." No one argued. Outside, Marcus waited. "That was powerful," he said. "But this place won't change overnight." Naomi smiled. "Then we make it impossible for them to ignore." Days passed. The stares dulled. Respect replaced suspicion. Then another knock. Marcus entered, followed by clerks, paralegals, even attorneys. "We wanted to say thank you," Marcus said. "You made them look. You made them listen." Denise, another clerk, stepped forward. "Kruger treated us like garbage. We just survived it. But you didn't. You don't have to keep your heads down anymore," Naomi said. They smiled. One by one, they left. The tide had turned. Another knock. Caldwell walked in, folder in hand. "Final training proposal. Judges are signing off. It'll launch next quarter." Naomi opened the folder, nodding. "Also," he added, "Kruger is considering early retirement." Naomi smirked. "Interesting. Welcome to the courthouse, Miss Blake." He left. Naomi sat back, staring at the nameplate on her desk. City prosecutor. They tried to deny her that title. But now, it meant more than ever. She had won the battle. But the war? She was ready.